Hello and welcome to this video. If you're new here, my name is Orla and I'm a Scottish artist, illustrator and designer making videos blending my love for art, nature and creativity to encourage others to get outside and explore creatively too. Before we get into the video, I quickly wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who's been subscribing, liking and commenting on my channel. I wasn't expecting to pass the 1000 subscriber milestone just so quickly, and I'm really happy that the videos I make seem to be resonating. I'm going to be launching 2 new tiers on the Outdoor Sketchbook Collective, which is my Patreon page. This is so that I can offer more educationally focused resources, tutorials and content for our community, which will be launching at the end of October 2023. Thank you to my existing Patreons. Your support has given me so much encouragement, and I'm excited to see how this community will grow together. Today I'm exploring one way to bring movement and freedom to the beginning stages of a painting, to avoid overthinking, and to try best I can to emulate the feeling of working outside when you can't always be in the places that inspire you. This video is a blend of research footage to accompany my studio session, delving into an ongoing series of works on paper. While I paint, I'll be doing a voiceover to explore my thoughts and ideas. Today I revisited a process I hadn't tried in years. It was so much fun and such a great way to bring energy and freedom to the work, to quit that overthinking. It's all about movement and is connected to why I love working outdoors so much. Because of the physical limitations that the natural environment brings to painting. The cold, the weather, the constant shifting light and moving landscape, it all makes you focus when you're finally there sketching or painting outside. I wanted to find a way to bring that sense of urgency back home with me, and I remembered something I used to do to get my painting started. It involves drawing in response to video, and is all about logging marks, textures and shapes non-stop without thinking. It's like a painting or drawing speedrun, and I loved every minute of it. To get warmed up, I've prepared underpaintings on each page, each a slight variation of a warm tone, through cream to brown to yellow to neon pink. Whilst these pages dry, I'm getting my movement exercise prepped and ready to go. To emulate this feeling of movement, I created a video of my footage shot up in the hills and sailing around the Summer Isles on a recent trip to the northwest of Scotland. I put all my footage into a 10-minute video and exported it. This video would be my visual inspiration to draw from. The aim was to respond to the moving images, taking as much of what I could down on the page before the moment passed onto the next shot. Hitting play, the task was to work across all 6 pages, filling them in with marks, textures and shapes. The film moved so quickly there was no time to consider colour carefully, so the focus was mostly on line. There is also no time for consideration of composition, just the aim of putting down marks in every page until they were full. I'd already decided that this layer didn't matter at all, but it was just interesting to see the results. Essentially, this exercise was a glorified version of making a mistake on a blank canvas, and problem solving your way out of that layer to get yourself moving. It's a really good fear dodger if you're afraid of the perfection of a blank canvas, or you just don't know where to get started. I think I'm going to use this process of making short videos and drawing to them as a warm-up exercise in the future, and to generate ideas into my sketchbooks. This layer, responding to video, uses a mixed media combination of oil pastels, soft pastel, ink, acrylic paint and watercolour. Because of the nature of the wet materials, this video response involved hopping around between all 6 pages to allow a little drying time on each one. Sometimes the switches between pages were conscious, seeing a little area in the video and applying it to how it could look next to an existing mark. But this level of consideration was pretty rare. Really, it was relying on instinct and visual note-taking. What came from these uncontrolled responses were a whole combination and proportion of colour, shape and composition that I'd never consciously put together myself. It's been really nice to surprise myself and pose alternate solutions to the tools and colours that I habitually use. This layer is still very much in my own visual language, but just in a completely different combination. Having materials and colours fairly pre-selected definitely helped this process, as well as having everything very close to hand. Initially, I had planned to work with this video on a loop throughout the whole studio session, but after this one 10-minute round, I was a bit saturated. I'd got what I wanted from this initial layer, and I had a place of problem solving to work from now. I also really liked what I had managed to capture in that short 10-minute block, and I fancied the challenge of trying to make something from this starting point. The footage I used in the film I was painting to was captured earlier this autumn. My partner and I took a trip to the northwest coast of Scotland, where I managed to gather lots of inspiration on our travels for my painting practice, through both sketches and film footage. Over the course of the 2 days, we went from the top of 2 hills at about 998 metres high, right down to sea level for a rib boat tour around the Summer Isles. I've been thinking a lot about this variety in landscape over such a short time scale and geographical distance, and how I might pull some of that variety into my painting. These paintings on paper are part of a continuing series. In summary, the project is looking at using words as an influence to direct the paintings. A word is selected for each letter of the alphabet and becomes a title for a piece, fitting under the theme of outdoors. This process also directs how many paintings fit into the collection, which is a pretty large number, which I'm aiming for to explore what consistency emerges by the end of this volume. I've made a whole video on consistency and the beginning of this painting series, which you can watch, and I'll link it to the screen somewhere around here. Today I'm working through letters F to K, hence the choice of 6 pieces to work on. Alongside exploring responses to film and movement, my studio session had a few focuses to fit around this alphabetic series. I wrote these aims down as a mini brief or direction at the very beginning of the session to guide me. Alongside processing the variety of landscape in the trip from mountains to sea, I'm looking to explore narrative in my work in general, seeing how I can take inspiration from the titles that I set myself to make stories from my imagination, which I then paint. It's this narrative and imagination I wanted to work with in the following layer for these paintings. These 6 works will be a blend of real-world influence and movement, working from memory and experience, as well as bringing my imagination into play. To help build out some narrative, I took 6 words associated with outdoors for today's works, and I expanded them to fit into full phrases. From here, I took a few minutes to jot down ideas that I associate with these words, or a singular word. Lots of ideas sparked around flowers, plants, things that grow, were coming up for me. I've been wanting to explore bringing the idea of a figure into my work, so I came up with some ideas of scenes that fitted the tone of my titles. Some ideas I had to take back into my layered paintings were around patterns, plants, time spent by water, mapping, walking, and rhythm. So many things to pull from. These words were really useful to bring into my work in the next stage of the session, and I just picked and chose what took my fancy to bring into the work as and when it felt good. Eventually, I decided to stop working with the light turning in. I'm still amazed every year just how quickly this changes. It's like a switch is hit and suddenly sunset is at 6 p.m. I always prefer to work in the daylight. I've never really managed to find a light that gives me true-to-life colour, which is really what I need to navigate my paintings. Fast forward to the next day, this morning session is all about fine-tuning and resolving the works from how they sat the night before finally peeling off the tape, titling, and taking a step back to see how they sit. As always, this might not be their final stage, as it always needs days or weeks even between completing the work to let the work settle and get some distance. These final few layers are always such a game changer and the pivot point for the work. It's there that overworking can come into play, and today was a lot about bringing in areas of space in amongst the pattern to try and find some breathing room. It's here that the final marks make all the difference. It can be a matter of adding 2 lines just to complete the piece. This stage for me is typically about working in a much more considered and slower way, in comparison to the riotous energy from the beginning stages. I'm really glad I slept on it before adding those final layers, because this step always requires lots of focus for me. The tape peeling process worked differently this time around. My local art shop didn't have the usual paper I use in combination with tape, so the clean paper has resulted in this more textured edge. Even though it's not what I was aiming for, I am actually quite enjoying the feeling it's brought to the paper and the finished painting as a result. Over the last couple of months creating these videos for YouTube, I think I've looked at my practice more than I ever have before, and this practice of filming and editing for the film footage has really made me look at what I'm doing much more closely, and watching all this process back is giving me so much visual feedback and inspiration to take into new work. I was talking with a friend just this week about embracing your inner weirdness and making yourself explore the things in your artwork which you think people maybe won't understand or you think are just a little bit strange. And that's what I've been really trying to do in these paintings. I think maybe my titles might be considered corny, but I've decided I'm just not going to care what other people think, because these are things that are coming directly from my heart and my experience, and I just need to work through these ideas to see what happens. I might decide at the end of all of this that I really don't like it, but right now I'm really digging what I've been painting, to be honest, and I'm excited to see how this series is going to continue to develop. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you outside.